like a checkpoint Charlie situation. Come on, give me your data. This mercurial, two-faced character, you know, who can inhabit Hades but also Olympus. He changes it, the suit he edits. But that still means that certain channels are opened. And around those channels are these little oases where the artists and the poets, the artistes, as you know, Pink Floyd would put it, what's at the end of the wall, the artistes and the, what does he call them, you know? They all hang around the wall. They're close to the wall. They're not actually out of the wall, but they hang around the wall, you know? And they're sort of the, you know, these derelict types. So the artists and the poets are listening to the other side. Their ears are open. Ultimately, the shaman is one step above that. But generally speaking, the people we bump into who inhabit this twilight zone, they are hearing and listening to the noumena. They're listening to that place. And they're the only ones who will transmit to us through the minstrel and bardic tradition. The muse will speak through them. In other words, the self will speak through them. It's not going to speak through the scientists. In fact, as we progress down through time now, we're going to have some very serious problems with this. The global village is, in my rendition or interpretation of global village, it's what this is. It's a perfect prison to make sure that each man who's inhabiting it has no unconscious. And so what we're seeing today in today's technological world is the replication of the unconscious. We dealt with this in the Architects of Control DVD. There's a replication or artificialization or what's called a simulacra by the philosopher Jean Baudrillard. Is man becoming as plastic as he can be, as technological as he can be, and also through the virtual reality paradigms and the implanting and all of these other paradigms, is the replication of an artificial unconscious because the real unconscious is ready to be buried. Religion was doing that under the name of theology, building the gates, or as William Blake would so perfectly put it, binding my joys and with briars. Right? Binding my joys and desires with their filthy briars. You know, is incredible language for this. Now the theology got exhausted, even though they're still around, and the scientists said, "We'll take over the job, bricks and mortar time, and we'll continue building the wall that stands between us and the self, which is ultimately reality." So therefore, at the little gateways and the little broken holes in the fence, stand the artists and musicians. And he said that in these people is the only real chance, still, they congregate, and they are disseminators or broadcasters of this, unconscious element. Not all, of course, there's lots of things we could say about that genre and everything, but in pure sense, he spoke about the high-level artists and poets being the voice of being. And then my interpretation, I changed this slightly, or just emphasize a little bit more, and I'd say that these are the men who are less mysterium possessed, meaning that they've either torn this mysterium from their face, the mask, and thrown it down, and so they see reality as it actually is, which has a whole bunch of side problems that comes with it, let's also mention. Or they've come into direct physical, mental, psychic proximity to the mysterium. When you pull down, and this was brought out in the movie Zardoz, when you pull down the curtain or the veil, or you try to go deeper into that place and seek the self, as Dante met a tiger in the first stages, as when he went to the underworld, you are now, the vulture turns to, you're suddenly targeted. What are you doing? And the mysterium will now actively, not in some amorphous, unconscious way, but you will now be approached by the guard, these police. And this will obviously drive you insane. And so I believe that men are judged, their psychic constitution is actually measurable in the courage that they have when they come into the proximity of the mysterium in whatever way is unique to them.
purposes of this, could you say that you do remember him?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember Orlov?
Yeah. I remember him.
What did he look like?
Shape of an egg.